And we're joined by Matthew Ramosi, SATAO coordinator, and Leanne Williams, a councillor in Johannesburg. Thanks so much for the time. Leanne, maybe let's just look at your source base in terms of this particular report with the inflated pilots' perks. What informs this particular move?
So it's inside information that has been made, that has been given through to me, and it just speaks to how the onslaught and attack on Dudu is substantiated because she's actually trying to root out corruption or institutionalized corruption, as in this case, with pilots actually looting SAA and abusing taxpayers' money.
All right, but if we allowed for this to continue in perpetuity, does this not rest then with SAA and its board to have at least raised the alarm sooner? Matthews.
Look, thanks. You know, we've been saying long back to say, look, if SAA is serious about saving the airline and making sure that the airline is profitable, we need to look into all aspects in terms of how do we save money. Now, if you look at the privileges that pilots have been having from as back as 1992, we view that it needs to change, and the change has to come now.
But doesn't it befit the responsibility and the qualifications and experience that the pilots have, and based on the service level agreements that they have with the employer, that this is something that is legitimate? Why do you feel that this is something that's untoward, Leanne?
Because if we look at when this regulating agreement was completed, it was completed in 1994. We are sitting 22 years down the line. The economic environment compared to pre-1994 is very different to what it is now. And if you look at, for example, the perks that are linked to pilots, one example is pilots on average are getting 2.1 million. A manager, and they're not managers, a manager only gets 660,000. Now, what they've also ensured is they closed down the cadet school, which means there's no pipeline for black pilots to come in. So this actually ensures majority of white males continue to loot SAA and the taxpayers' money.
Yeah, we did ask to get a response from Fadusa, who represents the Pilot Association. George Dennis was not able to join. So unfortunately, we don't have a response or details as to what the structure of their benefits are. But is this something that you could almost agree with as to what Leanne is raising, that there is truth to the concerns that she's raising?
Definitely. Look, we've been saying in terms of employees of SAA, our view is that they need to be treated the same. You see, if you look at the benefits that are given to pilots, really, I don't think SAA can be able to substantiate to say why. Look at the fact that, look, as pilots of SAA, which in our view, they are employees of SAA, but they are getting privileges.
Yeah, but what's the international benchmark, though, for that particular function?
Look, we are talking about issues like your meal allowances. We are talking about the issues of the venue where people should sleep. You know, currently there's even going to be a march on the 31st where cabin crews are raising their concerns. For example, when employees, cabin crew and pilots go abroad, they sleep in different hotels. Pilots will go to 5-star hotels and 6 stars, and the rest of the crew will go to the bedroom. So our argument is that, but why can't same employees of SAA treated the same?
Yeah, but there are levels, though, of engagement, and it's shop stewards and union representatives that engage and agree on a particular benefit package for crew members and then for pilots differently. Why are these concerns not raised in the bargaining chamber before signing it off?
Look, just before.
So Cindy, let me contextualize it for you. So firstly, pilots do sleep in 5-star hotels. Pilots, their wives get the benefit where it's unlimited flights. Their families and extended families. Let me give you an example of what happened in December when it was peak season. 400 million losses to SAA because of pilots and their families flying during peak season, where sometimes you find an actual paying customer needs to be bumped off for the pilot's family. Then let's look at accommodation. Year to date, 700 million spent on accommodation. Now what that 1.1 billion only spent from December to date on pilots and their perks. This is absolutely ridiculous, and I think it's time that South Africa knows where SAA is losing money. And you talk about an agreement was reached. This agreement was reached in 1994. It is long time to review this agreement. Also, if you look at the agreement, it is against the Labour Relations Act, it's against employment equity, and it's against Section 51 of the PFMA. So how can we still continue with a contract that is against our laws?
Okay, now engaging with SAA and its board, and we know that Dudumiani has been getting a lot of flack. Is it as simplistic as that she's trying to uncover all of this corruption and therefore the daggers are out for her? Or is there another narrative to this?
Look, that's why we've been supporting the previous board and the current one to say, look, in terms of transformation and things that needs to happen, we support this board to continue. The reason for our call is that, look, there's been an element of making sure that SAA changes boards in terms of making sure that the transformation does not take place. And we feel that the board that has been led by Ms. Mieni has picked up all these corrupt activities. Yep. And she's trying to root them out. That's where the challenge is. That's why we feel that even the pilots themselves, they are gunning for her head simply because of she's challenging the very same thing.
Yeah, but yes. SAA would have its policy though, and are you saying that the pilots have got such overbearing power over SAA and the board, where the board and the organization essentially cannot function because they're being held to ransom by the pilots?
So in terms of, for me, it's not about pilots having power. It's a change that needs to be made. You cannot, it does not make business sense to sit with 12% of the staff complement. That takes 50% of the total salary bill. That does not make business sense. And this is what Dudu has picked up. In order to turn around, if you look at the expense line, the salary expense line is the second highest contributor to SAA's expense line. So if they ensured that they fix this, we will ensure that by the change of this contract, SAA will save 511.1 million just by changing this contract. Now you tell me, does that not make business sense?
Well, but over and above that, there are contractual reasoning or aspects that we need to take into consideration in that these things were negotiated. So in other words, it is legitimate or legally done. Whether it was permitted to be overinflated over the years is another case altogether. But how then can we say that the courts, or rather the white pilots in your article, Leanne, that they have entrenched themselves in the SAA management and running off the organization? What do you mean?
So contracts are reviewed, and contracts should be reviewed on an annual basis. And if it doesn't make business sense, if it goes against regulation that we have in South Africa, then it must be reviewed and must be placed in line with given regulation. If we look at the pieces of regulation, and I think most important, cabin crew and pilots should share the same perks and benefits. Why should there be policies in one organization that is discriminatory? Now, if we look at majority of our pilots are white, and if we look at majority of our cabin crew, they are not white. They are actually black and female. Now, why are we discriminating in one organization with your employees? Employee value proposition should be the same for all.
Yeah, but are we not comparing different capabilities and responsibilities of employees? The executive generally would get paid more because of the responsibility, experience, etc. And then the less, what's the word? The less critical or essential crew, in this case, is paid less.
Okay, let me make an example. You're saying the executive would be paid more and employees would be paid an average salary. So let's take the total salary bill. It's 5.5 billion. The pilots take 2 billion of that. The rest is divided up of about 8,000 employees. Now you tell me, and that includes your executive, that includes your chairperson, that includes your board. For me, that does not make business sense.
All right, let's move the debate a bit forward. When it comes to transformation, there had been a pilot cadet program that the airline was running. Are you saying that the Pilots Association somehow had a hand in closing that in order to circumvent or to halt transformation in the airline?
Look, there's a process that is currently taking place at SAA in terms of evaluating pilots. That process takes about 6 months. What happens is they will check if you are still fit enough to fly and so forth. That is a process that these white pilots are using to make sure that black pilots are not,
How? Do they conduct the medical test themselves?
Not necessarily medical tests. What happened is sort of a type of a training to see whether certain pilots, still qualify to fly or not. So what happens is, if you don't support these calls, or it comes as if some pilots are against, definitely you won't pass that test. So it's been done to make sure that it victimizes black pilots to achieve the goals of being employees of SAA and to continue to fly.
Yeah, and unfortunately, if it's not fact-based and it's rather source-based, that one could argue, why bring all of these things out? What do you base your argument on? It's another lone voice that is supporting Tutumieni.
So prior to the change, the cadet school was actually free of charge for pilots. Currently, that is not the same process. And what you are doing is you're limiting your black previously disadvantaged, because you actually need to pay for your flight time. If you do not have a certain amount of hours, you actually do not qualify. So even if you go through a certain amount of training, but you don't have your flight time, and unfortunately, previously disadvantaged blacks cannot afford to actually pay for that for themselves. So what they've actually done, they've entrenched and ensured that the white pilots will remain there while there's a blockage of building a pipeline of non-whites coming through.
Okay, so something needs to happen radically so, and the SAA board being under pressure is probably, it's made difficult for them to operate and do their work. So from a union point of view, having had all of these, the evidence, so to call it that, what are you going to do?
Look, our view is simple, is to make sure that we support the board in making sure that the transformation takes place. By hook or crook, I think it needs to happen, and they must be bold enough to make sure that they do the right thing. And I think it's high time that they expect that, look, under these circumstances, it's going to be very difficult. But we have that confidence in the board to make sure that this transformation takes place.
Yeah, but what kind of questions should we be asking? And I'm just saying from a viewer or consumer South African point of view.
Look,
that says, this is the common narrative. All the allegations that have been made, her relation, alleged relation to the presidency, etc. What kind of questions should we be asking ourselves based on what you're telling us?
So we should be asking ourselves as South Africans, have we been getting all the facts? Or are we getting the attack where you find certain institutions like the DA, like OUTA, where they actually attack black corruption, where they say some institutions are corrupt institutions, and because it's black or black-led, it is corrupt. And where, if an appointment is made of women in senior positions, then it is she's not qualified enough until that individual is captured, and that needs to change. We need to ask the questions, do we have all the facts? And we do not, as South Africans, have all the facts. It is not Dudu that is where the corruption lies. It is in institutionalized corruption policies, we need to change that.
I'm afraid we have to leave it there. That's Leanne Williams. She is a Joburg councillor representing the Patriotic Alliance, and we have Matthew Ramusi. He is the SATAWO coordinator, talking about, of course, the SAA and pilots' impasse with Tutumieni at the helm being very much put under pressure. Now, on to